Want to know what crazy faith looks like? Well, here's my story. After working for the same company for over 9 years, with over 14 plus years in the payroll industry, I did what most would consider to be crazy. I quit. Yes. And let me tell you why I quit. I quit because the Lord told me to quit, okay? So just to give you guys just a little backstory. So I had been working for this payroll company for several years, and I had begun to establish great relationships with a lot of my clients. Like, a lot of my clients really loved me. There were a few clients that, I had specific processes for, and there was this one client that only I was the only person in the company that knew how to do this specific process for them. So even when it came to me scheduling time off, I would always schedule time off around this schedule, taking into consideration that I had to do this process for this one particular client. And so in 2024, I got accepted into this money management course. And so now I'm budgeting every month. I'm learning how to better manage my finances. And it was during this course that I came to the realization that my compensation just did not align with the cost of living. So it was like, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I cut back and save money, I just didn't have enough. I was already in a deficit pretty much. And so already facing the reality of that, as well as signing up for this program that helped me to hone in on what my purpose is, then I began to no longer have peace on my job. So I was literally showing up for work and I was seeing my morale change. I just did not have peace. And the one thing I've learned in my relationship with God, like when God is wanting me to do stuff, or when he's wanting to shake things up in my life, like he will begin to disrupt my peace. Like I won't have peace. And so he will disrupt it so much so to where I get to this point, like, okay, God, what is it you want? Like, what do you want from me? Because obviously you want something. And so it was that sort of thing. And so, I tried to do all that I could. I had the uncomfortable conversation with my employer about my compensation. And, my boss really truly went to bat for me. And after it was time for my review, I got almost a perfect score. And I was just hopeful with the utmost faith. I had extreme faith. Like, you couldn't tell me that they was about to really exceed my expectations when it came to this increase. Well, I was unfortunately highly disappointed. I still decided to show up still, because after all, it's my primary source of income. So it's like, although it's not enough income, it's like I can't afford to not have this income. I can't afford to not have insurance. So until the Lord blesses me with something bigger, then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna thug it out, right? All right. So back in October 2024, during my time of fasting and praying to the Lord, he dropped in my spirit for me to resign from my job. And I was like, what? You want me to do what? So I just cried like a big old baby. I'm literally in tears. And I'm like, God, no, how could you tell me to do that? I am terrified. What am I supposed to do? It's already bad enough that I don't have enough income to cover the expenses that I have, or the bills as it is. So if I give up the only job that I have, what am I supposed to do after that? And so I'm like, okay, God, well, I don't want to be disobedient. So how about if I just go ahead and write this resignation letter today, and I'm going to need you to proofread it. I'm going to need you to look over it, and then you tell me what you think. And then once you give me confirmation, then I'll turn it in, right? So I was really just stalling for time, right? Because I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it. I was scared. I was terrified because I'm like, what happens next? Where do I go from here? It's all I knew. And so, I say a week or two passed by, and I thought that I had got off. I thought I was good. I thought God forgot. I was like, yes, he forgot. But at the same time, I'm still showing up to work every day, and I'm literally it was nothing but God's grace that was covering me, because I was so disengaged. I was literally at work, but my mind was everywhere else but work. I literally did not have peace. I couldn't focus. Emails were coming in, calls were coming in, and I could not focus. I really did not have peace. And so I'm like, Lord, what are we doing here? Cause what? And so after a week or two went by, and I thought that the coast was clear, the Lord came back around, was during my time in praying and fasting, he's like, okay, you ready to do the thing that I told you to do? And I'm like, wait, what? You kidding, right? You kidding, God, right? So now I know my time is pretty much up. So it's like, okay, you just got to go ahead and take this leap of faith and do what the Lord is telling you to do, because like there was other things that the Lord was already doing in my life throughout that year, and I was already like, I had already gotten to a place where I decided to fully surrender to him and his will for my life. I was tired of doing life my way. It wasn't working out in my favor, so I'm like, what do I stand to lose by doing life God's way? But of course, this is something new. This is different. What, you know, it's the unknown, it's the uncertainty, so it's uncomfortable. So of course it's not something that I want to do, but I'm like, okay, Carissa, like you really don't have a choice at this point, right? Okay. So on November the 1st, 2024, I hit send on that email. But first I was like, I was thinking things through. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I see if I got any doctor appointments left. I got to make sure all my prescriptions are filled. Got to make sure like all the things are taken care of. And because, you know, after I leave, I'm not going to have insurance. I'm not going to have no income. I'm not going to have nothing. So I'm like, I'm seeing how much PTO I got. I'm finding out in the policy whether or not I get my PTO payout. And thank God that I did. So I'm just, you know, I'm moving in wisdom to try to make sure that I'm at least be good for a little bit of time until the Lord says, okay, this is what we're doing next, right? So so I decided that my last day was going to be November 25th, 2024. And of course it was right around the holidays. So all right, so after then, you know, there was a little bit of relief. So you know, the first week or so go by, I'm like, okay, I could kind of get used to this. It was more so like me being on vacation. But then after another week or so go by and the bills are coming in, and, you know, after I get my final paycheck or whatever, so I'm like, okay, God, like, what's the plan? Like, where are we going from here? Like, what we doing next? Like, do I need to apply for another job? Like, do I need to, you know, update my website so that I can have more makeup clients? Like, what we doing, God? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the plan? You know? So I'm praying, I'm fasting, and it's crickets. Like crickets. Like, God ain't saying what we doing. And I'm like, okay, God. But he's talking to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, we in communication, but as it relates to me having a job and income and so forth, like, the Lord ain't saying nothing. So literally, with each day, like, I would call myself having plans because it just didn't feel right. It did not feel right to not be doing anything. It didn't feel right to be sitting around the house. I hadn't told my kids. I hadn't told none of my loved ones. Like, I ain't told nobody because I'm like, they gonna think I'm crazy. So, and I didn't need the negativity. I didn't want people to be like, oh, girl, why would you quit? Like, because where I'm from, you don't quit no job unless you got another job, right? Because, like, who does that, right? It doesn't make sense. Okay. So I'm like, well, I gotta be doing something. So literally, like, I would make plans like, okay, today I'm gonna clean up, I'm gonna do laundry, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And like, literally, I would get up and I would not have, like, I wouldn't do any of the things that I planned to do. The Lord would literally be like, okay, today I want you to go to Stone Mountain. So I spent days out at Stone Mountain, and like sometimes I would spend 1, 2, 3 hours, you know what I'm saying, and just communing with the Lord, like just drawing closer to him, just having conversation with him, just reflecting on life. Then I even did like this 48-hour fast because I'm like, Lord, I'm gonna need you to, like, you know, I'm gonna need something, you know, like, give me something, God. So I did this 48-hour fast, and I went out to Stone Mountain, and the Lord did give me a supernatural download, just like he did with my book that I wrote a few years back. It was like literally supernatural. So he put in this whole thing in my spirit, and now I've created this whole business plan for this ministry idea, merch line, all the things. Like, I've created a whole 20-point presentation or whatever. Like, I stayed up to like 2 a.m. But the Lord still didn't say, like, hey, this is what I want you to do with that. So I'm like, okay. But he dropped that in my spirit, and, you know, I did what he wanted me to do at that time. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, so, like, what do we do next, God? Like, I'm still waiting. So he literally began to, like, speak to me in uncommon ways. I began to have more dreams. Like, it was almost like a daily thing where I'm having dreams. I'm beginning to see that he's communicating to me through different signs, like license plate tags, certain numbers. And now I'm having to seek him more and be in his presence a lot more so that I can interpret and know what it is he's communicating to me. But now at this point, it's like I'm desperate because I'm like, we ain't got much time. I ain't got no more income coming in. And, I get makeup clients here and there, but I'm like, God, like, what we doing? You know what I'm saying? So now it's like I'm desperate to seek his face. I'm desperate, but at the same time, I'm falling more and more in love with him. My relationship with him is deepening and becoming more and more intimate. And so, like, I'm really enjoying it. So the more and more that I am spending time with the Lord, he's having me to go different places. He's giving me visions and all sorts of things. So then he had me out at Vickery Creek Falls, and some of my other videos touch bases on some of the things that was happening. Like, if you guys have watched my other videos, you know how I've had encounters with deer, this bird called the egret, the otter that I saw, like all kind of signs. Like, the Lord has been continuously giving me signs and speaking to me with the bluebirds, all sorts of things. And so what I can say, I began to realize, like, what the Lord was doing with me in that season. It was like, okay, wherever it is that I'm about to take you to next, like, I need you to get comfortable with not feeling like you need to be doing something. Like, I need you to fully put your trust in me and only me, and know that I'm going to supply your every need. I don't need your hands to do anything. I need you to sit and not do nothing. That's what I need you to do in this season. I need you to not do anything. And that was so difficult for me, because I'm like, I just didn't feel right doing nothing. And all I'm thinking about is like, okay, well, eventually I'm not going to have no money. And I can't see myself having to ask other people for money, because it's like, I'm a grown, able-bodied woman that can get out there and make my own money. So it's like, God, like, and then it's like, he's not telling me to do anything. So all I can think about is the fact that I don't have any more income coming in. And I'm like, I definitely don't want to be the one to go have to ask anybody else for anything. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me, especially knowing that I quit my job. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I'm used to being the go-to person. I'm used to being the one. Like, even without me having a job, I still got people contacting me like, oh, hey, can I get such and such? Can you loan me such and such? And I'm doing it without a job. I'm still doing it. And glory be to God, because he made a way. And that's one thing that I love. I love being able to be there for other people and help other people. Like, it blesses me to be a blessing to other people. And so I'm like, I'm freaking out because this doesn't feel good. But at the same time, it's such a wonderful, beautiful experience, because I'm drawing so much closer to God. I'm just in awe of him. And he's constantly sending me words of encouragement and so on and so forth. And there were times where he did speak and give me specific instructions, but I was kind of like getting it wrong, because he would like tell me to go to the place or do a certain thing, and I would kind of like speak with someone else, and I would kind of mess things up. So I kind of made the wrong move in the past. But at this point, because I'm now like desperate and I'm seeking him more and more and more, so he kept putting in my spirit like Texas. Every time I turn around, I'm seeing Texas license plates. I'm like seeing 2 at a time. Like, so I'm like, sometimes I'm paying attention to the numbers. I'm going to Strong's Concordance, looking up the meanings, and the Lord is just constantly talking to me in different ways. And originally when he put Texas in my spirit, I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, what am I going? What is Texas? But at the same time is steady ticking. Now, new months are coming. I'm like, God, what we doing? You know what I'm saying? And I knew that like there were certain people that like I could call on, like, but I was like, nah, God, like, this is your will, it's your bill, Father God. So I'm like, when it came time for January rent, I'm like, Lord, what we doing? Because I'm like, okay, if I pay the rent, then that's gonna be, I ain't gonna have nothing left to pay nothing else. So I'm like, God, what we doing? So I'm like, God, you gonna pay the rent? So I lied to you guys. Now, I've been living out in this apartment complex for over 2 years. All of a sudden, like on the 3rd. So here it is. I'm like, God, I don't know how you going to do it. Whether you're going to do a supernatural, like deposit in one of my bank accounts or something. Like, if you're going to have somebody just miraculously bless me, I'm going to check my mailbox. Like, y'all, I'm checking my mailbox. Like, is there an unexpected check I got on the way? Because, like, I trust and believe that the Lord is going to make a way. But sometimes his way don't look like what we think it's going to look like. So literally, I am checking my emails, and we get an email. Now my apartment complex, as of January, is offering flex payments. So now I realize I can break up my rent payment. So I'm like, bet, that'll give me some more time. So I'm like, I could pay half of my rent now and half of it for the rest of the month. How I'm gonna get the money the rest of the month, I don't know, but God gonna help me figure it out by then, right? Okay. So it's still other stuff I hadn't paid. Like I got a car note. I got other stuff. I done pushed back all the payments. Like I done pushed back my car insurance payment. I done did whatever I had to do because I'm like, God, we just going. And so the money that I do got left, like I'm having to be very particular about what I spend it on and how I spend it. So now the Lord is like Texas, and I'm like, okay, but I need to know that I know that I know. So I'm continue to fast and pray. And so then finally I'm just like, you know what? And I don't even know where He want me to go to in Texas. He ain't gave me no address. He ain't said nothing. All I know is Texas. What part of Texas, I don't know. So now I got to kind of do the work and try to think of like, okay, where can I go? What part of Texas? So I'm just going to pretty much, I'm like, God, you got to give me a little bit more information. Like, come on, help me. Like, work with me, God. Like, come on. So if you know how God operates, then, sometimes He's just not going to give you details. Like, He going to give you one little piece of information and you just going to have to trust your gut instinct and just move. You're going to have to move in faith. That's pretty much what I did back in July of 2024 when I went out to LA. I'm like, when He told me to go to LA, I'm like, go to LA for what? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And He worked it out. But that's the story. Like, yeah, if you've seen my videos, you'll know about what happened when I went to LA last year. But anyway, so now I'm like, okay, I'm going to Texas. So then I began to think, and I'm like, okay. So the first thing that came to mind is like, okay, well, since we were approaching the weekend, He had already kind of given me a sign of what date to leave. So I had a makeup client that was scheduled for January the 10th. But we also had the snowstorm, so they canceled it because everything was pretty much shutting down. And so, but I wasn't going to leave, well, I kept watching the weather, and the weather was saying that the snow wasn't supposed to come until 8 that morning. But something in my spirit told me to get up. So mind you, I had already was starting to prepare certain things. I was packing up certain things. I was just getting ready. And so, I'm like, with this little bit of money, like, I'm just going to have to trust that it's enough. And then I'm like, so at first I was like, well, where am I going to go? Where am I take? Like, I ain't got no money for no hotel. So I'm like, how am I going to take a bath? Like, I'm going to be stained. Like, like, and I smell good, but I was like, but these are the things I'm wondering because I'm like, how long I'm going to be gone? Where I'm going to take a shower at? And then the Lord put in my spirit, like, yo, you got a Planet Fitness membership. Like, you can go to Planet Fitness, take you a shower. But anyway, so I'm like, all right, cool, God. Like, I'm gang. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Like, say less. Right? So it made me think about it. I'm like, oh well, since it'll be like the weekend time, I'm thinking about church because that's my life, like church. You know what I'm saying? Like I got to get a good word in. So I'm like, oh well, I could go to I could either go to Keon Henderson Church, which I didn't know exactly where it was located in Texas. But I was like, and I know that Bishop T.D. Jakes Church in Sarah and them, I was like, I know that there's somewhere in Texas too. I was like, but I wasn't for sure like which one was where. So now I'm doing the research and I'm like, okay, but he kept putting it in my spirit like Pastor Keon, because I was like, all right, cool. Because they sold into our church last year in 2024. And so I was like, well, that'll be dope if I can go. And I already sometimes watch some of his sermons. So I'm like, all right, that'll be dope. So I pull up the address and I'm like, okay, I'll just put in their address and that's going to be where I'm going. And I was like, as I'm on my route and headed that way, I just got to trust and believe that the Lord is going to reveal to me. Like, as I do what He's told me to do, as I get closer, then He's going to start ordering my steps. He's going to tell me what to do. So on my whole drive there, like literally the Lord put in my spirit for me to get up extra early. So I got up at like 2:45 a.m. on that Friday, on the 10th. And thank God that I did, and I was ready to get on the road. Like I got on the road like 5 something, and I had to go get my little oats and stuff from Starbucks and stuff. And so then, but literally as I was coming outside, putting my stuff in the car, it was ice already falling. And I was like, oh, let me hurry up and get my butt up out of here. So as I'm driving 85 south, the further I'm driving, like it was getting bad. The roadways was already covered. You can't even see the lines in the road. Like it's already covered in sleet, snow, ice, and it was coming down harder and harder. And I just kept praying the whole way there. I was like, Lord, please, because I'm like, I ain't nothing stopping me at this point. Like, God, you said for me to go to Texas. I don't care what I got to do. So I got both hands on the steering wheel and I'm driving. But also what I'm doing is I'm paying close attention because now I got to hear from God because I don't want to miss anything, So I'm writing down signs. I'm writing, like when I pass state lines, I'm writing down the times when I'm stopping at the gas stations or wherever I'm stopping at. Like I'm being very intentional about paying attention to all the details and I'm documenting it and recording it. But at the same time, I'm having a good time because it's like a road trip with me and God. So I'm singing, I'm praising, I'm worshiping, I'm laughing, I'm joking with Him. I'm like, God, you so funny. Like we just having the time of our life, right? Like because I'm on on this road. So I done passed through Alabama, I done passed through Mississippi, I'm going through Louisiana, and literally I was like, I kept seeing different stuff. I saw the egret bird, I saw 2 white ones, I saw some eagles. So I'm like, Lord, what does this mean? Like, give me a sign. Like, and I need you to tell me, like, while we talking, and since we talking, like, what you want me to do? Like, why are you telling me to go to Texas, God? Because, like, why? And I lie to you not. I'm always in Louisiana. And the way the Lord speaks to me is through this particular state's license plate, which is all the way on the East Coast, all the way on the other side. I lie to you not even 1 full minute after I asked God that, I looked to my left, and why is it a license plate tag that is passing by me with this particular state tag? So I'm like, Lord, you funny. So I go to look up the number on that tag in Strong's Concordance, and guess what the meaning of it is? New beginnings. I'm like, no, God, you something else. Like, you really truly are something else. So now I'm like super excited because I'm like, God, I just love you so much, like, for him to even just give me that confirmation and let me know that, like, okay, you're doing the right thing. You're being obedient and doing what I'm asking you to do, and great things are to be expected. I'm just like, yes, God. But anyhow, so as I'm traveling, I'm also thinking, and it's coming to my mind of like, oh, I know this person stays in Houston. I know that person stays in Houston. So I know quite a few people, and these are pretty much people that I feel like, okay, if I were to reach out to them, like, I would have somewhere to go. But at the same time, I'm like, nope, Carissa, like, you cannot do things on your own. Like, if you're surrendering to God and his will, like, let him lead you, guide you, and direct you. Like, he didn't say for me to contact any of these people. So I'm like, nope, before you do stuff, like, because you done already did this before in the past. Like, you done called and told other people or talked to other people, and then things didn't go the way that you thought it was supposed to go, and then that discouraged you, and then you didn't continue to move forward, and you weren't obedient. So I'm like, I don't want to mess things up. I want to make sure, I want to know that I'm hearing from God. And so I talk to God, and I'm like, God, I want you to, I'm not going to reach out to anyone right now, although I know these people that I can contact because they're in Houston. I'm not going to contact anyone because I also don't want to not be in a place where the Lord is telling me, like, where he wants me to be in. So I'm like, it's extremely important for me to be led by the Holy Spirit. So, because I'm like, if I'm not in the right place at the right time where God wants me to be, then I may miss being in alignment with whomever he's sending across my path, so, like, that's extremely important. So I'm like, well, what you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So lo and behold, I said, okay, well, let's see Planet Fitness, because most Planet Fitnesses are 24/5. So usually on the weekend days, like, they're closing kind of early. So at that point, I was like, I don't even know if it's one open, but I pull up in my maps, and lo and behold, there's the Planet Fitness that is 24/7. And I'm like, God, thank you so much. So I'm thinking that I could just go into Planet Fitness and take a shower, but for whatever reason, I have this amazing amount of energy, and I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and work out. And don't ask me why. Like, I had been up since 2:45 a.m. At this point, it's like 8-9 o'clock at night, you know what I'm saying? So, which really, because now I was like an hour, is it an hour behind? I don't know. But anyway, so I'm like, I know I'm supposed to really be sleepy. Like, it's time for me to kind of lay it down or whatever. But y'all, like, I'm working out for well over an hour, like an hour and a half. I done worked out. I done took a shower. Now, I did feel a little way because the shower was cold, you know what I'm saying? So, I was like, but you know what? I'm used to this journey. It get a little uncomfortable. So I'm like, I just had to thug it out, y'all. Like, it was cold, but I was like, at least I was able to take a shower. So then I get in my car, and I'm like, well, God still ain't tell me to reach out to nobody. So I'm like, I guess it's going to be me in this car. I'm just going to have to sleep in the car in the Planet Fitness parking lot, right? I ain't got no money for the hotel. Like, I got money, but I need the money that I got to make sure I got gas, food, and so forth. So I'm literally in my car, and if you know me, you know me. So, like, I had the heat on at first or whatever. Then eventually I'm like, okay, I ain't trying to die, so I'm not going to just, like, run my car the whole night. Like, no, we ain't doing that. So I turned the car off, and I got my little blanket and my pillow, and I'm getting some rest. Y'all, I couldn't sleep for long. So, like, within I'd say, like, maybe an hour or two, I got some sleep. And I'm like, it's cold. And I'm anemic, so I get cold easily. So I'm like, So I cut on my car, and I'm like, let me find a nearby truck stop because I need something hot to drink. So I find this truck stop nearby, and I get me some cappuccino or whatever, and I'm just sitting in the car, and I'm like, well, why you awake? Like, you ain't sleep, because now I can't sleep. And there's a certain level of excitement that I'm feeling, because I'm like, God, what are we doing? Like, I'm excited about whatever it is he's about to do, because I know it's about to be big, right? Because my God is big, right? So I decided to take out my Bible, and I'm like, okay, God. So now I go back to all the signs that I was recording and stuff like that. And then I was like, I started to think about the dreams that the Lord had been having me have like lately. So I was like, God, help me to interpret these dreams. So I pull out my Bible and I'm reading the book. I'm in the book of Revelations, and God is like really just causing things to unfold. Like all these clues and pieces to this puzzle just began to come together, and I started to really understand what the Lord has been doing in my life for this past year. And I'm like, wow, God. So I'm amazed. But then my phone buzzes, and now it's my sister, one of the people that lives in Texas, and she's messaging me like, hey, where you headed to? And as she continues to watch my story, she's like, girl, you in my backyard. Like, y'all, I lie to you not. I was literally like no more than 15 minutes away from her home. So she sent me her address, and I went to her home, and I'll have to fill you guys in on the details, but she did confirm that like the Lord sent you here for me, because there were some things that she had been going through, and I'm not gonna put my sis business out there like that. But she did confirm that like the Lord had been putting it on her heart to draw closer to him. So I know for a fact that I'm right where God wants me to be.